Without you, this discussion wouldn't have happened. And we've gone all out to just ensure that we've looked out for our teams through you. So we are actually looking to get so much enrichment from you guys. We now want to thank you so much, even before we start, that you made the time to be with us on this very special day. The International Women's Day for APA 2024 is going to be very unique. We are looking at three things. Just like the three wonderful ladies are sitting with us here and ready to share so much with us. Please, let me request for 3 sets in each of us. Have the right mindset for today, consider your right skill set, and also look out for the right tool set. What these ladies will be sharing with us, you will have to consider from which of those sets. Is it your mindset, is it your skill set, or is it a tool set that you carry from this discussion today? So very, very invaluable inputs that we are looking out for. Kindly, my dear colleagues, make sure you don't leave this place the same way that you came. So we're looking forward to some very interactive, great discussions from the wonderful ladies. I'll start with you, Bev. You're speaking to us about your careers, our career growth. Is there anything you really want to tell us from that nurse story to being the MD for BAT to sitting in various boards today, and as a woman, what has that been like for you?
Wow, that's quite a question. It's a very holistic question. So, yeah, just briefly, I think the career changes that you decide to take as an individual. So for myself, yeah, I started in London, did a nursing degree, worked in the nursing space for a number of years, later decided to do a marketing diploma, moved to the pharmaceutical industry, worked in marketing in the pharmaceutical industry and sales, then wanted to work overseas when I met my husband. So it's interesting. There's a dynamic shift that takes place in your life because of other life circumstances, not necessarily just because of work. So I met my husband, and we decided that together we wanted to try and find opportunities to work overseas. My husband was also in Britain at the time. So it's not always about having this grand plan, although I always advocate for people to have a career plan. It may not always work out 100%, but having a plan tends to help you getting the 80-20 rule. But for me, that was quite a big life change. So meeting somebody that I decided that I wanted to spend the rest of my life with meant that we wanted to look to work overseas. I then had the opportunity to work with a company at the time called Rothmans International. I didn't want to work for them, if I'm absolutely honest, because I was an oncology nurse. I specialised in the treatment of cancer, and it took them 9 months to persuade me to join them on trial. And I stayed with them, and I think there are some reasons why that may come out during the conversation. That was a life-changing moment for me because it was a step change in lifestyle. We were both out of our comfort zone. We were now working overseas together. I was the lead career. I had my first son, and my husband had to set up his own business in order to be able to follow me around the world. We've worked and lived in 7 different countries. Wow. Kenya was the last country that we settled in, and I'm still here now. We've decided to stay. Having moved for 26 years together, we thought there was enough of that. Once the children came along, you then have to talk about how are you going to manage things. So this is another big step in the conversation as a partnership with my husband, who's Nigerian, and you're all thinking, how does an African man, follow his wife around the world? Well, he has, and we've had a great life, and we've enjoyed every second. He set up his own sports business, and he's done it wherever we've gone. The balance then came to the children. My 2 sons came along and I wanted to be, I want to be amazing at everything I do. I wanted to be an amazing mum as well as amazing at work. So you have to have very difficult conversations about how is that going to work, knowing that sometimes I'm working 14 hours a day before anybody sees me. Who's going to look after the kids? Magic formula, nanny. I had the same nanny in my life from the moment my first son was born to the time that they went to boarding school in the UK. She's still part of our family now.
Wow.
She's the one that supported me to do my career and give my husband the confidence as well that everything was okay when he was working. That's... Whew.
Wow, thanks, babe. Guys, ladies, you can actually have it all together. You can be a great mommy, a great wife, and actually a great worker, employee, and give it your very best. Did you hear the magic formula?
The nanny.
So, yes. Oh, Grace, thank you. So, it's actually okay to ask for help and to look for the right help. Absolutely okay. So these are some of the tools that you just need to remember so that as you push for your success in your career growth, you also remember that yes, it's necessary to have that very good help to support you. Now, when it comes to money and women, Rina, one of the hardest things that most of us find ourselves in is to keep to, just very similar to what Grace was saying. Every new year there's a resolution people are making, their financial goals people make. I had this friend of mine who really wanted to buy a car, and every year she would plan for it, and at the end of the year she would tell us, people told me they like my walking style. and yeah, that's why I've not achieved this. How, Rina, as women, how can we start in the first place, make real, proper financial goals and stick to them?
Yeah. Okay. Good morning, ladies, and happy International Women's Day. It's such a pleasure to be here. Your leader, Ashoksha, is a good friend. We've known each other for a long time. He's also a client, and we are clients of APA, so I feel like I'm at home. Thank you for having us. Thank you for the question, Irene. I think the reason sometimes our goals don't work is because they're not meaningful. And we don't take time. We know it's important to save. It's important to spend less than we earn. It's important to exercise. It's important to eat healthy. But we don't do it because we haven't quite, it's not meaningful for us. So I think I want to say two things. The first thing I want to say is that many times we start with thinking through, what do I want to have? So that then I can do what I need to do, and then I'll become this person. And that cuts across everything in life. And I want us to change that from being who must I be, no, what must I have, what must I do, and then I'll become, to who must I first be? And then what do I need to do so that then I can have? So it's just changing your mindset. You talked about the skills. Yeah, I'm going to repeat it again with an example.
Okay.
So for instance, I'll use exercise as an example, and then I'll come to my finances. So I was giving this story yesterday somewhere. I wanted to become strong by the time I'm 50. So it's still a goal. I'm like, when I'm 50, this story of women losing bone density is not going to be my story. I'm going to work hard at it, and I want to exercise. And so I told my husband, I said, I'm going to be a strong woman. So this means cardio has never been a problem for me, but strength exercises have. So I just haven't done strength exercises. And so I decided, once I turn 40, that's something I'm going to incorporate, and I'm going to be very consistent. And then I just wasn't. It would be 5 days I've done no exercise. And so one day I wake up, I go towards my bathroom, and my husband stops me and says, do you know why you're struggling to become consistent? It's because you don't see yourself as an athlete. So putting it into context, my husband is an athlete. I mean, he played rugby, represented the country, played in the World Cup. So, I mean, he's an athlete until today. And so I was like, okay. So he sends me a video for me to watch to see the importance of seeing myself as an athlete. So if I see myself as an investor, I see myself as a wealthy Kenyan, I see myself as an investor. I love what she said. I am excellent in everything that I do. And so because she sees herself that way, excellence oozes out of her. So it's how are you seeing yourself? Now, that's where it begins. But where do you actually start? Okay, I've seen myself as an investor. Where do I begin? It begins by you asking yourself, what do I want to see happen here? Like, really, what do I want to see happen here? Is it 100 million? Is it 10 million? Is it 1 million? Is it 100,000? And by when? Okay, so once you see who you are, and then what do you want to see happen here, you ask yourself, what do I need to do to get there? Where am I now? So the first thing is, what do I want to see happen here? The second thing is assessing where you are now. How much do I earn? How much do I have in terms of assets? What do I own? How much do I owe? And how much am I spending? Assessing where I am. Because that's where I want to go, but here is where I am right now. And what do I need to do to then get there? So the third thing is a spending plan. So that's where I want to go. That's what I want to see happen here. This is where I am now, I've assessed. And then the third thing I need to do is to then now create a spending plan, or what people call a budget, that is aligned with where I want to go. So I might need to cut out some things, I might need to remove some things entirely, or reduce some spending so that I'm able to put aside something that can help me get to where I want to go. And then things like emergency funds are very important. Having some money set aside for emergencies. Just putting aside a little money, begin with 1 month of your expenses and grow from there. The next thing is debt. You also have to have a strategy about debt and making sure that if you have debt for consumption, you make sure that you have a plan to get out of that debt. And then you have to invest. And you have to invest wisely based on your needs and your goals. And I'm going so fast, but we shall go slower. But finally, you need to learn and to grow in your knowledge of what to do with your money. So for example, if I need to know, okay, I need to invest, where do I start? What investment options can help me to be able to generate a passive income? What do they look like? What is the kind of risk I'd be taking? What's the interest rates that is available for me? What are the requirements? What are the risks involved in investing in these things? And then make that decision. So just in an overview, it begins by assessing where I am. Where am I now? I'm sorry, not assessing where I am. It begins with what do I want to see, my goal. Where do I want to see happen here? And then assessing where I am. And then creating a spending plan that will align with where I want to go, okay? And then once I've done that, I start thinking, okay, yes, I want to go there, I want to invest my money, but I need to have an emergency fund so that when something happens that is unexpected and it is urgent, I'm not selling my land, I'm not having to go into debt, and being in a space of being very stressed out. And then as I do that, I start working also on my debt to make sure that I start paying it down. And then I invest and continue to learn and grow in my knowledge. But start with assessing where you want to go. What's that goal?
Amazing. Guys, if you're not taking notes, I don't know what's going on in your minds, but I really hope, personally, I'm like, okay, emergency fund, it's usually one of my girlfriends that I call when I need that. So now it's really hitting home. And now I'm wondering, Roseanne, if I'm broke, can I really keep fit? Is there any connection with my finances and my wellness? Because will I even get the energy to go to the gym if I have no money? Anyway, tell us, Roseanne, one of the things that we all globally learned during COVID was, whether we liked it or not, there was this realization of how important our health was. And at that point in time, AP actually made some good business because people who did have health covers realized how important they were, and everybody was united globally by one thing: taking care of your wellness, taking care of your health.
Yeah.
It was one of those things that wearing a mask was not. You actually felt okay. You left the house without a mask and remembered you don't have it and you had to run back for it. You cared, you thought about it, regardless of race. It united us. However, immediately after that, some of us have let our guns loose because we've gone back to reset. We're no longer setting any health, wellness, fitness goals. And if we do, like Grace we don't keep to them. We want to lose so many kgs, we end up with a little more instead of losing. What is this you can tell us about the same concept of setting those goals and sticking to them, especially as women?
The thing is this, whatever it is you want always comes from a place of decision. So whenever you're making a decision, it's when you are cutting off what has gotten you to where you are now and deciding, because of where I am now, if I've gained excess weight, I need to move X, Y, Z. I need to move to a different direction. So the first thing we must do is to make a decision. And what a decision does is it cuts off every other option out there. At 29 years old, I had high cholesterol. But before I had that diagnosis of high cholesterol, I was overweight. Now, Grace, go to my Instagram page, Coach Roseanne. The fourth, I had to go quickly and look. 1, 2, 3, 4. That first picture in black and blue, that's me. So I was overweight. I had to make a decision. And the decision came from what both speakers have talked about. It came from a place of being aware. First, not only did I have high cholesterol, but I was already overweight. In fact, I was classified as medically obese.
Wow.
Climbing up the stairs, my knees would hurt. I love wearing high heels. The girl loves high heels. I've always loved them, okay? And for me, I could not wear them. And I remember the day I was climbing upstairs and even coming down the stairs, I had to hold on to the rail because my knees were hurting. So all these things and symptoms, my body was already talking to me. Climbing up 8 steps in our house in Boston, Massachusetts, I would get to the landing space and I'd be panting. So I want you to imagine, young woman, educated, I thought I knew all things about health, but going to the doctor and being told having high cholesterol, that for me was the wake-up call. So when we talk about goals, it came from a place of, this is not an identity I want to live with. I don't want to be known as someone who's medically obese, neither do I want to have high cholesterol. So when we make the decision, the next thing you want to do is, who do you want to become? Rina has touched on that. Who do you want to become? And that comes from a deep place of identity. How do you see yourself? I never saw myself as an obese person. Neither did I ever see myself as someone who has high cholesterol. Neither did I want to grow older, because this time we had our little young girl. And I am not able to play with her because my energy is low. I am not able to walk up the stairs or even carry her because my knees are hurting. These are things I didn't want to do. So when I made the decision to cut things off, which I'll be talking about the tools later on what to do, it came from a place of, we're cutting off who has gotten me to being here, which is inactive, which is eating all the wrong foods, which is not worrying and caring about my body, my health, my wellness. I had to cut this off and I had to make the shift. So when I was setting goals, and we're going to talk about that in depth, you first come from, you become aware of where you are, you make a decision on where you want to go, then you must choose the identity. Who do you want to become when it comes to your wellness? And what COVID did, not only did it help us understand more on the importance of your body, because I'll say this, it doesn't matter how much money you have, it doesn't matter how much you're running to grow your career, if your health is not at par, if you're not healthy, you're going to spend the latter years of your life, and this is something that I worry a lot. When I see older people, I coach older people and older women who are now using all the money they've accumulated. And you guys, this is going to help you if you take this on now, so that in your latter years, you're not using all the money you've accumulated to now go to the hospitals. People are moving up and down different countries to take care of their health. If you start now, the body is very intelligent, and we're going to talk about the tools, the things to do that are going to help us with our health. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Thank you so much, Roseanne. Because I'm listening and I'm just like, self-awareness is not enough. Self-management is absolutely important. So being self-aware is one thing, but self-management is actually cutting across as a very fundamental issue. Now, Bev, as a woman, you must have had some career challenges as a woman. So wearing the hat of a woman, as you balance, as you you focus to be the best in what you're doing, share with us one personal experience that really had your greatest impact in your life. Either positive, sometimes it's more negative for us, but whatever that is. What is this? What is your story that you believe could resonate to many of us as we seek to grow in our careers?
Okay. As you can imagine, having worked in the corporate world since 1992, so before some of you were born, probably, you're going to have had some experiences that are classic discrimination experiences. I have to say that as my career has progressed, those experiences have declined. That's not because people don't want to discriminate, that's because I'm stronger.
Nice.
So I don't have any time or space to accept behaviour from some people, and they know it. I shut things down very, very quickly in conversations, so that people understand that I know who I am.
Yeah.
I know what I can do, I know what I can deliver, I know what I bring to the party. I do not need anybody to discuss my sex. So, yes, I've had several horrible experiences. I've had the hands on the knees during dinner by people, my bosses, sitting next to me, where, you know, and if you don't shut it down, the conversation would lead to worse things. I'm very capable of dealing with this. It was difficult at first. I had to really build my confidence, and also I used to talk to my husband about it and tell him what was happening, and he'd say, okay, how are you going to deal with it? Because I had a plan in mind about my career, I didn't want this to be an issue. So, yes, I've had the hand on the knee. I've sat in a boardroom with 18 men and myself, where they were talking about football when I went into the room, and they didn't realise that I'm an avid football supporter. My dad is an ex-professional football player.
Nice.
I support Liverpool. Just saying.
You never walk alone.
Anyway, and I'm from Liverpool, so. And they said, oh, we better stop talking about football, we better start talking about handbags. So I kind of looked at them all and said, should I serve the tea as well? You know, I said, don't be ridiculous. I watched the Chelsea match last night, blah, 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 because I heard they were talking about Chelsea. And, you know, I felt they could have done X, Y, and Z. Within 2 seconds, they were like, you know, okay, that was a bit inappropriate. So they realised very quickly how inappropriate that comment was. I've walked into a room in Nigeria the first time I went to work there, and I was head of marketing, and I walked into the room, and there was this Nigerian guy. He had his back in the room, and there were about 8 of them talking, and he said, I will never work for a woman. So I said, oh, I'm glad I know that now, you're fired.
Wow.
So he turned around and looked at me, and I said, I'm your new boss.
Wow.
So obviously, 15 minutes later, there's this knock on my door. This is Obatoyinbo. I didn't really mean it. I said, well, I know you did.
Yeah.
So now we're going to work out how you're going to get those thoughts out of your head and how I'm going to change your mind. You are going to work for me, and you're going to be an excellent member of this team. So, yeah.
Wow.
Thank you, guys. I mean, but you just have to know your stuff. you really have to know your stuff. You really have to be, whenever I think what I'm hearing from you, Bev, is just get your stuff in order so that it doesn't, you have reasons to push back, or you have valid points to push back whenever those challenges find us in our careers. Rina, have you ever made a poor financial decision, really?
You know, whenever you see somebody talking a lot about something, it's usually from a pain point. I've made horrible, and many. Let me start with one that I consider one of my big ones. So a friend of mine invited me to watch a production at, I love theater. I have done many things in theater, and so invites me to watch a new production at the Kenya National Kenya National Theatre. And it was fantastic, and we came outside and I went to congratulate the team and just say, you guys have done a fantastic job. So he said, I need to come see you because we want to grow this in certain ways, and came to see me in the office. And this friend of mine then shared how they needed some money, and could he borrow money, and then they'll pay me back in 10 months, and I would earn 25%, it was 20% every month. Yeah, 20% every month, because the returns were going to be amazing. So I was still in financial services when this conversation was happening, and I was like, yeah, sure. Let me think about it. So I thought about it. I asked him for their accounts. I even spoke to a lawyer, and I said, you know what? I think, let's see whether I can make this happen. And so I think the excitement, what drove me to give them my money was I had just sold a car, and I had 500,000 in my account, and my plan was to continue to invest that money and then eventually buy another car. And then unfortunately, I made a decision to lend my money to my friend. And I think I overlooked a few things. So first of all, the return they would make, I didn't look at the market, thinking through, okay, they're getting the money to buy DVDs rather, to then convert this thing into a DVD, a video sale. And I was like, where's the market for that? But I was in financial services. I just didn't take the time to do the math. Anyway, the point is, I lent a friend money and I got nothing back. And I ended up using matatus for a much longer period than I needed to, because they only paid me back a year later, like 20,000 shillings. I tried to take them to court. It was I was hurting so much emotionally because of that. And one day I was so overwhelmed, and I went to see my dad, and I said, I'm so angry. And he looked at me and he said, let me tell you something, my dear daughter, don't ever lend money to a friend or a relative. What you do is tell them that this is all I have, okay? But in your heart, know you're giving. You don't have any expectation to get the money back, because people just don't pay you back. And so that was a big lesson that I learned.
Wow.
So I don't
somebody actually say, when you're doing that, also choose the amount the one that you're giving, that you're willing not to ever
exactly,
yes. So if it's 1,000 and they wanted 100,000, just give. I have 1,000, and in your mind write it off.
Yeah.
So wow.
Yeah.
Sometimes when you look at your profile and where you are, you're like, this chick might have made some few
very many
mistakes or not.
Many.
And the beauty, guys, is you're hearing it from them. So don't beat yourself so hard if you've also made some financial mistakes.
Can I share one more?
Yes.
Can I share one more?
Yes.
Just one more.
Yeah.
The other big mistake that I've made is waiting too late to start. When I was new in my career, I think it was I was 1 year in, and the receptionist calls me and says that there's a young man here from the university who needs to see someone who wants to start to invest. And I said, yeah, sure, let him come. So he comes in, we sit together, and he was joking the other day. He said he came in slippers and a t-shirt, which is true, but I didn't even think about that. And we sat down and he shared with me such an amazing story. He shared how his mom had passed away the year before. He didn't have a dad, he was an orphan, and he had 3 siblings, there were 4 of them. And he said, look, I have just received money from HELP, and I'm so excited that I've received money from HELP, and I want to be able to invest this money so that I can grow, because I don't have an uncle or an auntie or anybody who's going to help me. And so I listened to him, and he said, can you work with me to help me figure out where to invest my money? And so I said, sure, and we started to work together. He had brought 19,000. I mean, I'm sorry, he had brought 5,000 and 19,000 he was going to use for the rest of the term. Anyway, the point is that he began. Sometimes he'd bring 3,000, sometimes it'd be 2,000, sometimes it'd be nothing. And it wasn't every month, but it was every time he could bring something. And eventually he finished his education, but continued to bring when he was an intern. And 2011, so that was 2002. I've been in the market for it'll be 20 years this May. In 2011, I had now moved departments. I wasn't working with him anymore, and I received a request for an electronic funds transfer for 2.85 million, and it was his name on it. And I was like, how did we get here? And so I called him and I said, look, 2.8 million, he had sold his shares and he wanted to put down a deposit for an office. And he was going to be a landlord. And I'm like, from 5,000. And he taught me so many. Sometimes we look at, I looked at what I had and I'm like, it's so little, I might as well just go and have lunch. You know what I mean? Right. But he showed me that with consistency and with dedication and discipline, just whatever it is, even if it's 1,000 shillings, consistently putting it aside, over time, you actually do very well. Today, he's so amazing. He's gone so far in his investment journey because he started at 19. He's almost 40 now. He's been my client for 18 years, and it's been completely amazing.
This sounds so good. Atomic Habits, if you read that book, consistency, just keeping with it and just looking at the multiplier effect. Yeah. Guys, we are about to wrap up, almost winding this up. If you have any questions, please just pass them through to Grace. Those of us online as well, you could share your feedback or any questions you'd like to just clarify from any of the panelists, and even in the room, if you want to write them somewhere, just prepare those questions so that we have a very quick Q&A as we almost come to close. Roseanne, you mentioned something to do with tools. Maybe tell us a bit about that. What are some of these tools that we can have? Sometimes we are so stressed out in the office or in between office and work or in the house. What are some of these things we can do just to keep us, positive? Or what are some of the tools we can have? We know our minds are the biggest tools in this, but what more can we do to really keep to this theme of wellness and fitness journey?
So you know what you asked, which is very interesting. You said, what's more? But I'm going to go back to the mind, because that's what stops us. Because I want you to think about the Titanic, okay? When the Titanic was, on its journey, they did get to see an iceberg, but they saw a tiny little iceberg. That's what they saw. What they did say or consider was what's underneath this big, massive iceberg that was underneath, and that's what took down that ship. And what takes us down is actually not doing more. It's really considering what's underneath. What's driving our habits? What's driving the decisions that we're making? That's what we need to consider. So when we're talking about the tools, the first thing, I always say we look at your mindset. And the mindset, we're going to then break it down into, let's look at our emotions. A lot of us women, we were actually talking a little bit earlier about our emotions and the things we're going through and our husbands, etc. But it's true, we're driven by our emotions. And so when we talk about self-awareness and we're talking about the tools, you've got to know what emotions are driving you. Because when we look at habits is the last thing that I want you to look at. Because there are other steps that you need to look at, and those are the most critical steps. So you're thinking, what tools do I have? First, become aware. What kind of an emotional being are you? What drives your emotions? Are you an emotional eater? Right? So I focus obviously on nutrition. So if you find yourself eating because you've been emotionally triggered, you've been upset by the boss, or you've had a rough argument with your husband, or your kids are driving you crazy, or you've gotten this diagnosis, rather than dealing with that issue, you reach for food. That awareness is important. Because the more you're aware, you now will have the tools to figure, I deal with emotional eating, so let me go look for someone that's going to help me with my emotional eating issues. Then you might also say, you know what, no, maybe I don't create the right boundaries. Bev has told us how she's created those boundaries at work and in her career. So for you, you might then say, you know what I've realized? I do not create the right boundaries. These are the tools that you need to work on. So you say, who can help me work with my boundaries in my career? And you have Bev. Or you might be looking at your checking account and saying, yo man, I got no money in here. What do I need to do? Rather than keep those emotions out, you go see Rina, who's going to help you create the financial plan. So for me, when we talk about tools, we're always going to dig deeper. When clients are coming to me, they're like, Roseanne, I just want to lose weight. Don't tell me what to do. How many of you know that YouTube has literally 1,000,001 videos on what to eat or what to do to lose weight, right?
Yeah.
If we followed those things, how many of us would not be worrying about our weight if we're struggling with our weight?
All of us.
All of us. So what we're lacking is we each have a ceiling, an internal ceiling. We are stuck. And you've got to figure out what that stuckness is for you. I can come and tell you what to eat, and I will tell you what to eat. Eat a balanced diet. Make sure, write that down. Make sure your macros are in there. You got your protein, you got your carbohydrates, you got your fat. Those are the 3 macronutrients needed to balance. Question, you're going to get a better answer. So when you're asking, why am I struggling? The 7 kilos, let me talk to you, girl, because we talked about those 7 kilos every year. The question is actually not the weight, it's not those 7 kilos. There's something deeper going on. And what is that? That year after year, you have this, there's an inner grace that says, you gotta lose that weight. And by the way, it's not even a number. I want you to ask yourself, what do the 7 kilos represent?
Yeah, I know.
This is for everybody. I'm pausing because I want everybody to think about that. What do the 7 kilos represent? Because it's never about the numbers. So I want you to go deeper. Are you guys getting me? When you go deeper and you're asking, 7 kilos represent confidence. Represent
So true.
represent no disease because my parents, we have high cholesterol, so I'm thinking into the future. It represents something. So you gotta go deeper and say, yes, I know the tools, I know what to do, but what do these numbers represent? Once you become clear on what those numbers represent, you're now going to take the right actions from a place of absolute knowing. I am now doing the tools and I'm doing the work, and I want to talk now a little bit about that. I am doing the work from a place of absolute self-awareness. I know why I want to do it, and I know what it represents because that's the end goal. Now we begin to do the work, this is the other problem that I know a lot of us have encountered, is we now go into extremes and we go into diets. When I was on my own weight loss journey, I did make that mistake of looking for something that would help me lose the weight. And I tried counting calories, and immediately I was like, man, because I'm looking at the numbers. Actually, I hired a coach, and this coach wrote for me exactly what to eat. So I had a meal plan written out. You guys, if you've ever followed me on Instagram or written to me, there's so many people who write to me, they're like, Roseanne, give me a meal plan. I'm like, girl, that's the wrong approach. Because how many of you have had meal plans, but you never have lost the weight? Because it's not sustainable. So this coach writes me a meal plan, but she has counted my calories for me. And she's basically teaching me, she's giving me a tool to help me lose the weight. Now what I want you to do is I want you to consider, when you start working on your journey, consider the capacity you hold within yourself to be able to make the application of whatever it is that you're working on. So when she has this meal plan written for me, I was supposed to understand it and now begin to create one with a calculator, and I needed to be counting, like with every meal. I remember this the first time I ever saw cottage cheese. I didn't know what cottage cheese was. I was like, what the heck is cottage cheese? I'm supposed to be, and then I wasn't supposed to eat chapo. I was like, man, This, for me, in my head, it wasn't making, I would just look forward and say, okay, I know I need to lose this weight. In fact, I need to lose my cholesterol numbers, but I don't see how I do this in this structure, in this format, which is what a lot of us are doing when we struggle with our weight, is we are looking for the quick fixes, but we're not quite considering what else are you losing along the journey. Capacity, the energy, I'm not going to be spending time eating the same food with my family. So all those for me were deal breakers. Then I had another coach. So when I said I can't do calories, I was like, okay. Another coach comes and tells me, oh, why don't we measure? So go buy a scale. Now, me, I was a very good student. By the way, when I'm told something, I will do. But in the process is when I figure things out. So I go, I buy a scale, I bring it home. As soon as I put it on the kitchen counter, I was supposed to start measuring my food. So I bring my scale, I put it on the kitchen counter, I remove chicken, and I'm supposed to weigh that chicken one. And immediately, I was like, and now this time we have 2 kids. So I'm thinking, and I was an overwhelmed mama with 2 children. I was in Boston, we have no help there. So you do everything, you're the nanny, you're the, I didn't know that then. I didn't know that then. So I was the nanny, I was the cook, I was everything. And I was still working. And until at some point I became a stay-at-home mom. But when I looked at these children, I looked at the house and I thought, I'm going to be adding this other tool to make me lose weight. I was like, this is not sustainable. So these are the tools you need to think through the process. Think through the process of what is it that you're doing. Now, what's the latest thing in Kenya? What's the biggest thing right now? People were eating 1 meal a day, right? We're fasting.
Fasting.
That's fasting. Yes, that's the biggest thing. You've got to ask yourself, well, let me tell you something. Everything that you're going to read that comes into the earth, there's always going to be, you're going to see the benefits of it, but there's always going to be the negatives. And so there's a girl I'm coaching right now, and she's really fighting for her. She's like Roseanne, and she has all the science. She has all the science. There's the benefits of fasting, da-da-da. I'm like, yeah, you're right. But every time you do this, you always binge because you're not eating. So notice how the behavior comes along. Are you seeing how it's an inner game? It's that underneath the surface. We're tending to look at what's a berg. We're looking at that iceberg, but really what we're facing to look at is ask the right questions and underneath. So what do? Holistic lifestyle. You must focus on your mind, asking why, what that number represents. What's your goal? Why do you want to do it? The why is what's going to drive you, because you're going to be very clear, I am doing this for this reason. I'll tell you my why. First, I wanted to lose my cholesterol. But as I moved on, I realized on my father's side of the family, we have a history of high cholesterol there. I then modified my why. I was like, now I have kids. I realize I have high cholesterol. I want to be able to teach my children the right tools at a young age, so that we end this generational, this is now what we call the generational, the things that we carry on from one generation to another. For me, I was like, it's going to end with me, and hopefully my children, I have taught them the right tools. They will now hopefully teach their children the right tools. It modified. As we got older, and as I got older, it now has morphed to the place of, why do I do what I do? Not only do I now do it for myself, but I realized how important the body is. So it talks to you all the time. Your body will speak to you. You will know when you have that headache. You will know when you're feeling the stress. You will know the things to do because your body is constantly talking to you. Mine was the knee aches, the joint aches, the lower back aches. I was seeing that mid-belly fat. That is the biggest thing you want to be concerned about, because you're predisposed to lifestyle diseases, diabetes, high cholesterol. I had that. So notice those things. Then what you want to do is, once you then begin to understand that, you now choose, what can I do that's holistic? And that is, this is the key word, sustainable. Ooh. Because what happens after you lose that initial weight? We're talking about that yo-yo effect. So I want you, and you're making the decisions from the get-go. You're starting from this place. I don't want you to have that short-term view. And I love what Rina has said. In fact, let's look at her investment strategy. You got to think long-term. If you lose this weight now, has the mechanism, the tools that you've used to lose this weight, Can you be able to sustain this long term? Ask the right question. Ask better questions. If the answer is no, please don't give up and just say, oh, let me just do this for now, lose the weight, and then I will think about it later. There's enough history that shows that that doesn't work. So, sustainability. And what is sustainability? You gotta work on your mind, your mindset. We've already talked deeply in that. Focus on your nutrition. You gotta eat a balanced diet. I'm always all about moderation. So we're not saying, because that's another thing that causes a lot of folks not to get like, but Roseanne, my food's gonna be bland, it's gonna be boring. No. We're eating mostly whole foods most of the time, and we're eating in moderation, so you're enjoying your wine, your cakes, your treats in moderation. And the key now is you gotta stay consistent.
Well, the number of times this consistency, sustainability, taking your decisions to yourselves has come through so much. We just need to now wrap up. Just back to Roseanne. What's your final shot? I mean, what's your parting shot? What is this that you could tell us, just in brief? What is it that you want us to take home?
Okay.
In addition to, of course, what you've said, but just wrapping this up.
So to wrap this up, this is what I want us to do, and I encourage you to do. Number one, you must decide you want to change. You gotta make that decision. Remember, I keep talking about that, and I'll repeat it because it's important. You have to come from a place of, I must decide, I must change. The second thing, you must look at your life and you must say, something must change. Because you cannot get there with the same tools that have gotten you where you are here. So what has gotten you here today will not get you there. And so that says, I must therefore change something. Whatever that something is, it does not have to be drastic. Let me be clear. It does not have to be drastic, because anytime you go on the swing on the pendulum and you go to the extreme of something drastic, guess what happens? That pendulum will swing right back. Our bodies like to be in a state of balance. Then once you decide that something must change, you must change, then the next thing is you must begin to take the action steps. Because there's a lot of us who have head knowledge. We know, we can tell, we can teach, we can repeat, regurgitate. But that's not where your transformation happens. Your transformation will happen the minute you begin to do the work. And you gotta be patient in your transformation process. You didn't take, how many, Grace? Let me put you on the spot, girl.
No problem.
How many years have you been talking about 7 kilos?
Oh my God. My daughter is 9, so 9 years.
Okay, there we go. Perfect. So 9 years she's been talking about it. So I want you to really think about it. So why would we expect her to lose 7 kilos in 7 days? We're gonna have to do a lot of unwinding and learning. What has held you for those 9 years? So as you're doing this work, recognize it is going to be a process. It's not going to be something that you're gonna change overnight. But as long as you're making one step a day, one change a day, you will notice you're moving in the right place. And the key is with these small steps that you're taking, please always celebrate yourself. Recognize what you're doing. Because for a lot of us, we miss to celebrate ourselves because our eyes are just looking at the future, that end goal. But the key is in life is celebrating these small steps that we're working on.
Beautiful. Can't add, can't subtract. Thank you so much, Roseanne. And as Roseanne was speaking, she actually mentioned something to me that a lot of YouTube and a lot of, all these things. And one thing Rina has done, Rina Hicks has her own YouTube talk show on MoneyWise. Is it MoneyWise?
Yeah.
And actually authored a book. Are you going to share some of the books with us? Are you giving us? Are you selling to our I saw you authored. Stop speaking.
Thank you, Bev. Bev has my back. Bev has my back.
Did you come with some of those? We can have a look at them, or and what actually, even as you give us your final, your parting shot. What inspired you to author the book? Okay. What inspired you to come up with that YouTube? What the channel thing, the whole concept of what you've done? What was your inspiration?
Okay. Thank you. Yes, I came with copies because it's International Women's Day. I normally sell them very cheaply, by the way. I sell them at 1,000, but because it is International Women's Day, I will give APA people a 20% discount. So you will buy it at only 800. Okay, so let me start with what inspired me, and then I'll go to my parting shot. Hey, it's been a journey. I've made so many mistakes, and I just shared 2, but there's very many. Some of them are in my book, and you'll be able to read them, and the lessons learned from there. I think my inspiration, first of all, whenever I learn something, I want to tell others. I'm like, you guys need to know this. Whatever it is, whether it's about parenting, whether it's about healthy eating, whatever it is. But I think for me, because I'm in financial services and because I should know these things and I should have been somewhere by a certain time, I think just coming to the place of understanding that it's not just me who doesn't know. I mean, I used to sit with clients who were my father's age, who don't know what they need to be doing. And what inspired me in this very season was a customer who had a finance magazine and would tell me, oh my gosh, you explain so easily. Why don't you write in my magazine? And I started to write for his magazine. And then in that season, we had a huge influx of companies that were Ponzi schemes. So they would say, bring us your money, we'll double your money in 3 weeks or in a month and so on. And we had a huge exodus of our clients. I was in customer service at the time and I'd be like, where are people taking their money? I actually took myself to DESI offices to sit and tell, please explain to me, how are you doubling money? And I could not understand it. But seeing the queues outside their offices, I was like, there's a crisis. Like people just invest because their grandmother, their auntie says, come and put your money here, but not from a place of understanding. So my mistakes combined with just recognizing I wasn't alone inspired me to start putting some things together. And so that's, the book came about. But I had a lot of imposter syndrome, thinking I don't have 200 million in my account. What do I know? How can I teach people? And so, I involved others in the process, and you will see that journey even as I write it. My parting shot. I said I've been in the industry for over 19 years, and because it's Women's Day, let me talk about the woman. I think women, research actually shows that we're better investors than men. Shock on us. We are actually better investors than men. But what happens? We doubt ourselves so much. We want to know 99% before we are able to do anything. And it actually applies. And Bev will tell you, even in the career realm, when there's a job opportunity, the men are just like, I have 50%, I'll apply. I mean, this is something I can do. Let me tell you, even my 7-year-old son, my last one, I will be fidgeting with this gadget that is new. I can't figure it out. My son will tell me, Mom, come, let me show you how to do it. Bring it, let me show you how to do it. He's never even seen this thing in his life before. I don't know what it is about men, but for them, they know. They just know. And they feel they know. They don't. But they just have a confidence about them. And that's how they approach life. Kwani, how hard is it? I can do it, right? So please know that you know. You know. So just start. The thing is to just begin today. Time right now, for those of you who are still young, if you are working, you're still young, you can still make money. Time is your superpower. So take advantage of it now. And it's amazing just listening to Bev and to Coach Roseanne. The principles are the same. Whether you want to build wealth, lose weight, or grow in your career, the principles are the same. So don't just listen, apply it. The last thing I'll say, and you mentioned him, Atomic Habits. James Clear says we don't rise to the level of our goals. We fall to the level of our systems. What does that mean? If you want to decide to do something today, don't just wait, okay, I want to save 10,000 a month. Don't wait to the end of the month to decide, okay, how much is left from my expenses that I can actually save. Create a standing order. Create a system where you're not having to think. It's an automated process of you being able to invest and to put your money away without having to think about it. And 10 months, a year, 3 years, 5 years from when you set that system, you will be so far ahead from where you began. So I wish you all the best, but please take action. Don't just listen and be happy. Take action today. God bless you guys.
Thank you so much. Bev, your party shot, which should pick on what Roseanne said, or pick on what Rina has said. So, holistically, tell us.
Okay, so I've been talking about breaking the glass ceiling, a phrase which I hate, but anyway, people always ask me to speak about it, for 15 years. And I've been talking at International Women's Days for 15 years. So what I've tried to do is to put together what I call the 6 C's. So these C's are things that you can write down and remember, and they're just to trigger behaviours, positive behaviours that can have positive impact in your careers. C number 1, work on building your confidence. If you are not confident, your voice will not be heard. I heard somebody say earlier, what does diversity mean to you? And they said, we want to be able to have an equal seat at the table. If you are not confident and you do not speak with confidence, but also speak because professionally you've prepared, you know what you're talking about, no bullshitters allowed. So confidence means prepared. Confidence, C number 1. C number 2, build powerful connections. Connect with people. I have grown in my career because of powerful connections, some of whom were women, some were men. I'm still very, very connected with many people that I met 25, 30 years ago, and I take time to stay connected. Because you never know when you might need this person or when they might need you. Powerful connections. C number 3, commit. Commit to a plan. Be disciplined. Have a plan that is sustainable. You may not achieve 100%, but remember there is an 80-20 rule. So 80% of 100 is a lot. 100% of nothing is nothing. Commit to a plan, C number 3. And please have a life plan, not a career plan. Think about life and career. C number 4, curiosity. Continue to be curious. One of the things, sorry there's a few men in the room, but one of the few things, I'm looking right at the camera, that I find about men, perhaps less so today than I used to do 20 years ago, is that they think they know everything. To your point about your son thinking he knows how to fix your mobile, he doesn't, he's going to break it even more. Anyway, it's like, lift up the bonnet on that car. They don't have a clue. They lift up the bonnet, look at the engine, and you're thinking, really? So, curiosity. Continue to be curious. It's a skill set that women have, and you need to amplify it. So never think that you know everything. There's always something new to learn.
Yeah.
And since I've stopped working full-time in the corporate space, I've spent more time being curious than I have done in the last 30 years, and it's been very interesting. C number 5, challenge. Okay. I'm going to be a little bit brutal here. I came to Kenya in 2017, having worked in 6, but actually looking after over 100 and something countries at one point. Kenyans are naturally quiet. They don't challenge. When you speak, like as you hear me speaking now, so that's a little bit about confidence and a little bit about challenge. Challenge yourself to put yourself out there. And don't be afraid, be bold. Challenge. Challenge the situation in the office if you don't like it. And if somebody says to you, we don't like what you're saying, go away and think about how you said it. Okay, I'm going to go back again and I'm going to say it differently. Or if you're me, you just keep repeating until it changes. So, challenge. I added C number 6 at my last session actually. C number 6, be a contagious leader. Be positive in the workplace. Negative people are rotten apples. They create a very unpleasant work environment, and unfortunately that is also contagious. So be a positive, contagious leader. Let your positivity rub off on somebody else. You and I work well together because we are both positive. You might say that negatives attract, but it's not true. You know, as in positives and negatives attract. It's not true. Positivity attracts positivity. So be a contagious leader. And I add number 7, which is celebrate small successes. I've just stolen the word that you just used. So it's number 7, celebrate your small successes along the way. You have a plan which could be 10, 15, 20 years away. You can't wait to achieve that before you celebrate. So you achieve something, celebrate. On your own if you have to, with your family, with your kids. I just did this, I'm amazing. And don't be afraid to say, I'm amazing. My parting shot. Negative minds do not build positive lives. That's it. Be positive.
And 7 being the number of completion, guys, please give these ladies a standing ovation.